Hi, I'm Tina. I'm the mediator here at Florida Divorce Coaching and Mediation. And this consultation video is intended for those who do not have minor children. So if you do have minors, please watch the Kids First mediation video. Otherwise, this is intended for those who may have adult children or may not have children, but essentially are not needing to do a parenting plan and child support guidelines and all of that. So, the way I usually like to start these is to explain to you kind of the landscape of divorce because I think it's helpful to have the context of what are the other options, right? And then give you an idea of where my process fits in and how it works, and how it looks compared to some of those others. So, on the most low conflict, I guess, low cost end of things, uh, we have something called that we affectionately call the kitchen table divorce in this industry, which is essentially two people DIY their whole divorce. They sit at their kitchen table, they figure out the terms of their agreement, they draft it, they file all the court forms, they show up at court, they get the judgment from the judge, and then they go on their way from there. Um, a lot of people do this. It is, at the end of the day, it's not like you can't do it that way, right? I will say for a lot of people, it feels overwhelming to do it that way. You've already got a million other things going on right now, a lot of moving parts, and it feels stressful often for people to try to figure out the entire process of actually getting through the business of divorce on their own with no help. So while that option exists, it's often not the option that the reason you're here probably is because maybe that's not really what you're looking for. Then on the flip side of that is the litigated divorce. That's what people often think about when, it's a divorce that drags on years and years, right? Like tons of money being spent, 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. And we're in a situation where it feels like it's never going to end, right? And that's the litigated divorce. So that's a situation where two people have attorneys on retainer and are proceeding towards a court date unless they settle first. And if they can't settle, then they're going to go before a judge and have the judge make the determination for them, which is never the best case scenario to have a stranger, even a judge, deciding anything about your future, financial future. Um, and of course, there are people who litigate their divorces without attorneys as well. So that's also something that we see. And then in between that, you have collaborative divorce. That's a process that essentially entails two collaborative attorneys, a financial neutral and a mental health neutral. It can be a wonderful process for the right set of circumstances. I am involved in the Central Florida Collaborative Divorce community. I'm very active in the chapter here. I think it's a great process and can be extremely helpful for a certain type of client. And then I think it's also the reality is it might not be affordable for all clients, or it might not be the type of framework that every client who finds me is looking for. It's one of those things you need to kind of look inward and figure out what exactly is it that you want your divorce process to look like. And there's no right or wrong answer because, you have a certain life that you want to live and a certain way that you want to go through things, and you need to figure out what aligns to that. And so when you look at the process that I offer, which I call one team mediation, but essentially it's pro se mediation, meaning neither person has an attorney present at mediation or on retainer, so to speak. Really, the goal is to get you guys through the divorce process as efficiently as possible, as affordably as possible, and avoiding court, right? Those are kind of like the three main pillars of what it is that I do. And so the way that it works is we generally start with an intake session with each of you. So that's like a 30-minute intake with each person so that I can get your perspective, your concerns, your priorities, potentially find what are those sticking points going to be. Are there certain things that you just absolutely know are going to be a problem and we need to, plan ahead for that? Are there certain professionals that I can get you guys connected with that can help you to figure out what your options are? So that's kind of the goal of those sessions. And then we meet jointly. So generally, I do 1 hour meetings, usually a weekly cadence, unless we need more time to gather information. And we meet once a week. We talk through the marital settlement agreement, which is your financial agreement that you'll need in order to get divorced uncontested. And so what we do is I usually will just screen share and we walk through each section together. So vehicles, retirement accounts, bank brokerage, figuring out, how we're going to deal with this year's taxes if they still need to be filed. All those types of things, right, that we need to discuss as part of a divorce settlement. So the idea is we meet in 1 hour sessions until that's done. Sometimes it only takes a couple sessions. If, especially if you've already had a lot of conversations and you're pretty aligned on things. Alimony is also one of those things that we'll discuss. And so the two of you will decide whether or not that's something either of you is pursuing and come to terms on that. That's often a question I get is how's alimony handled? Um, and so those are all things that we'll talk through. And then ideally, you reach a full agreement, right? And that's kind of what we're always aiming for. And if that happens, then you can also have me do the court forms for you for a flat fee. And then what I do is partner with an attorney, and he will e-file it for you through the attorney e-filing system. And generally, we can avoid a court hearing if we do it that way. And so it's a much more dignified process. It's much less litigious. It allows you to kind of get through, check the boxes of the things you need to determine and decide, and go through that business of divorce without having all the nastiness and the unnecessary expense that comes along with the court process. So if that sounds like it kind of fits within the ethos or the value system of what you have going into this divorce process, I would love to send you more information. You can click the link here and get some more information on the process and the pricing as well. I will send you. And then the other thing I often get asked is, what if the financials are complicated or confusing? Then what? And in those situations, what I tell people is there are professionals that I can refer you to who specialize in divorce finances, who can help us along on their end to really get clarity and to get you the kind of information that you need to feel comfortable moving forward. So that is always on the table. Consulting with attorneys hourly is always on the table. I often have people who do that between sessions or have it reviewed at the end, and you can always do that if that makes you feel more comfortable. But the idea is just that the clients that work with me don't want to have, that type of professional intervention in every conversation. So just a little bit of a different structure. But yeah, so if you think this is something that would make sense to you, I would be my privilege to work with you. I'd be happy to send you that information as well. And, I hope I get the chance to work with you, and I wish you the absolute best, if not in this next chapter.